Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here for the first time, welcome. My name is Angela and I find my paradise through reading. Welcome to my attic. If you've been with me for some time, you know I've been working on renovating my attic, and I'm pretty much officially up here. Still working on it, but it is habitable. So I have a little setup here. I have the carpet put in. Can you see it? Hold on. You can kind of see it. So we still have some work to do, but it is absolutely lovely in here. I'll give you a tour at some point. But today I wanted to talk about the books that I read in January. Oh man, I have just been having such a good time with reading. I say that every month. I've been really lucking out with just picking books that I just love. And I don't know if I'm just really understanding the kind of books that I like, or maybe it's just luck, because it's not even like I'm sticking to a genre or I'm sticking to a certain author. But I've been having great time. So let me give you an update on the books that I read in January. There were only 4, so I have them here. Let me start off with my Puff and Bloom classics. Okay, so I have this, if you remember, if you've been with me for a while, I had a box set of 4 Puff and Bloom classics. It had A Little Princess, Anne of Green Gables, Heidi, and Little Women. So, okay, these are the 2 that I read in the month of January. I read A Little Princess maybe a couple months ago, and I absolutely adored it. So the next book that I read was Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. Like, okay, first of all, these books are just absolutely adorable. They are so beautiful. They feel so good to hold. It's the pages, I mean, I just think they provide such a pleasant reading experience. That's just me. I don't know if any of you folks have these editions, but I just loved these so much. I loved carrying them around. I just love how they, and they're not that big, but they're just so gorgeous and so cute. And sometimes they'll have like little illustrations in it. The inside pages are, they're just so pleasant. I just love these. So a little about Little Women. Okay, this book has this version is 777 pages long. Okay, this is kind of a reread for me. I say kind of because I read Little Women like 20 some years ago, but I only read the first part. Like, sometimes these come in 2 separate books. So the book that I read only went up until Meg got married, and that was the end. So that's my only experience with it. This book goes into beyond that, beyond when Meg got married, and I think, let me see at what page. It's about half of this book, I know that much. This kind of just part 1 and part 2 is what they call it. But yeah, I guess Little Women can be found in 2 books. Let me see. Yeah. So it says like part 1 and part 2. The book that I read 20 years ago was basically only part 1. But this is following 4 Little Women. See, these 4 sisters, in the beginning of the book, they're kind of youngish. So we have Meg, Beth, Jo, and Amy. And at the moment, their father is away helping with the war. He's not a soldier, but I think he's like helping with something else. I don't know if he's like a preacher or something, I forget. And so this is kind of like a coming of age. They're kind of growing up, trying to be useful, have like little life lessons, being like sometimes doing without, kind of being frugal and mindful of things. And this is just like their relationships, like with each other, with their neighbor Lori. He's a more wealthy neighbor that they have, who's being raised, I think, by his grandfather. So they're pretty wealthy. The March sisters are not, but they have this really wonderful relationship with Lori and his grandfather. So this book was just, I've been working on this for like months because it's kind of like so slow paced, but it is such a cozy read. And you just really care about these girls. You care about this family and the things that they're doing and going through. My favorite sister is Jo. She's the one who, she's a writer. She shows so much courageousness, like going to places and trying to speak for herself, because back then it wasn't that popular for women to be writers. And so she would go to these newspapers and places to present her writing and articles and things like that and get paid for them. So she kind of would negotiate and speak for herself and really market herself and her writing, and yeah, explore different ways of writing and still trying to be true to herself. I like that she seems pretty content just being herself and being Jo. And even if she had to stay single for the rest of her life, she seemed perfectly content with that idea. She just didn't want to worry about a husband and kids and marriage and maintaining a household. She kind of just wanted to write and not have other expectations put on her. And she was just such a loving, sweet sister as well. But yeah, so she was my favorite one. So I'm going to show or read a couple small excerpts just so that you can see a little bit of the writing style. Okay. Actually, speaking of Jo, I turned right to a page where she was writing a letter back home to her mom. And she says, "We have such funny times, and now I can enjoy them, for everyone is so desperately good. It's like living in a nest of turtle doves. You laugh to see Meg head the table and try to be motherish. She gets prettier every day, and I'm in love with her sometimes. The children are regular archangels, and well, I'm Jo, and never shall be anything else." And that's just her. Like, she's just like, I'm Jo. And then this cute little poem that she wrote. "Queen of my tub, I merrily sing, while the white foam rises high, and sturdily wash and rinse and wring, and fasten the clothes to dry. Then out in the fresh air they swing, under the sunny sky. Along the path of a useful life will heart's ease ever bloom. The busy mind has no time to think of sorrow or care or gloom, and anxious thoughts may be swept away as we busily wield a broom. I am glad a task to me is given to labor at day by day, for it brings me health and strength and hope, and I cheerfully learn to say, head you may think, heart you may feel, but hand you will work away." So I just love that. Jo is just so talented. Oh, and here's just, I'll share another one. And this is a snippet of, there's a lot of like little life lessons throughout this book. And it's just so cute how they're just kind of scattered in here. So this is their mom. And she says, "I wanted you to see how the comfort of all depends on each doing their share faithfully. While Hannah and I did your work, you got on pretty well, though I don't think you were very happy or amiable. So I thought, as a little lesson, I would show you what happens when everyone thinks only of herself. Don't you feel that it is pleasanter to help one another, to have daily duties which make leisure sweet when it comes, and to bear and forbear that home may be comfortable and lovely to us all? Then let me advise you to take up your little burdens again, for though they may seem heavy sometimes, they are good for us and lighten as we learn to carry them. Work is wholesome, and there is plenty for everyone. It keeps us from ennui and mischief, is good for health and spirits, and gives us a sense of power and independence better than money or fashion. Only don't go to the other extreme and delve like slaves. Have regular hours for work and play. Make each day both useful and pleasant, and prove that you understand the worth of time by employing it well. Then youth will be delightful, old age will bring few regrets, and life become a beautiful success in spite of poverty. Okay? Little Women, recommend. So then I read Heidi. Okay, and this is by Johanna Spyri. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. But this book just had me smiling. It just had me in my feels. It had me wanting to be in the Swiss Alps. The descriptions of the nature, the mountains, the weather, the snow, it was just glorious. This was just glorious. So this is following Heidi. At the beginning of the book, she's like 5 years old. Her parents passed away. She was being taken care of by her aunt for a couple years, but then her aunt got like this new job opportunity and she needed to relocate. And she's like, well, I can't take on this job opportunity while I'm taking care of this child. So she takes Heidi to the Swiss Alps, to where her grandfather lives. And he's like way up there. He is this grumpy old man, doesn't talk to anyone. No one talks to him. He's very bitter. And there's like a village in the mountains, but he lives higher up. Like he just lives away from everybody. And so she takes Heidi up to her grandfather, who she's never met. And she's like, hey, you're going to take care of this girl. Gotta go. And she dips off. So here's this old man stuck with a 5-year-old girl, and she flourishes and thrives in his care. And it is just so beautiful and so sweet. And like the simplicity of their life in the mountains is just beautiful. The simplicity of their meals and their routines. And I just couldn't get enough of it. And then there's Peter. He's like a goat herder that lives in the village, and he gathers up all the goats in the village, and then he'll go up by the grandfather's house because he has 2 goats. So he'll grab those 2 goats and keep going up the mountain to take them to pastures and to grazing areas up in the mountains. So when Heidi's there, like, she likes to go with Peter, and she'll just kind of be with him all day, him and the goats. But things happen. The aunt shows up. I don't know how many years later. She shows up and she was like, hey, I'm going to take you to these rich people's house who have a daughter who is in a wheelchair and they need a companion for her. I think this would be great. So she actually takes her from her grandfather, which was very sad. You know, it was just so sad. Like, Heidi didn't want to leave. The grandfather was hurt, you know. And so all this stuff happens. I'm not going to spoil everything, but this book just hit me in the feels. Highly recommend. This is the perfect winter read, I think. This is the perfect winter read. I love this as a winter cozy book. So let me read a little bit so that you can see the writing style. Okay. Grandfather, why does the hawk croak so loudly? He's jeering at all the people who live in the villages down below and make trouble for one another. You can imagine he's saying, if only you would all mind your own business and climb up to the mountaintops as I do, you'd be a lot better off. The old man spoke these words so fiercely that it really reminded Heidi of the croaking of the great bird. The fire in the evening was the best of all. Peter said it wasn't a fire, but he couldn't tell me what it really was. Can you, though, Grandfather? It's the sun's way of saying good night to the mountains, he explained. He spreads that beautiful light over them so that they won't forget him till he comes back in the morning. Heidi liked this explanation very much and longed for another day to begin so that she could go up and watch the sun's good night again. But first she had to go to bed, and all night long she slept peacefully on her mattress of hay, dreaming of mountains and flowers and of Snowflake. Snowflake is one of the goats, bounding happily about in the midst of it all. So, Heidi, totally recommend. Oh my God, so cute. My other one, here's the last one in the box set, Anne of Green Gables. I'm not sure if I wanted to read it this month. I might save it for next month, but this will be the last one. And I mean, 3 of the 4 I read and I loved all 3 of them. Oh my gosh, love them. Okay, so then we get into my 3rd read of January, which is The Witching Year by Diana Helmuth. My nose is itchy. This was interesting. This is a memoir. It says a memoir of earnest fumbling through modern witchcraft. Okay, so this is a memoir. Diana Helmuth wrote this book during COVID. Okay, she was at a point in her life where she wanted to try something different, try something new. She wanted a sense of like strength and belief. She wanted to believe in something again. So she decided that she was going to try witchcraft for 1 year. And this book was so funny. This book was so funny. Like, she would be scared of conjuring demons by accident. She was scared of messing up certain spells. You would see that she would try to substitute ingredients of a spell for other things. And it was just like a riot. But ultimately, what I really, really enjoyed, besides the humor in this book, what I really enjoyed was the healing journey that she went through during that year. She really thought a lot about her ancestry, her traditions, where she came from. She did a lot of research in all kinds of beliefs, you know, and the traditions and histories of witchcraft and different religions. But there were some things that from her past that she actually, it was like kind of, I don't want to say targeted, but it was like brought up during her practices with the witchcraft. And it was beautiful to see her confront those things in her life. And yeah, it was just, oh, this was such a great book. And I do love that you're kind of learning with her. Like, you're learning about different beliefs and different gods and different goddesses and where certain ideas and traditions came from. It's a really, really cool book. I was surprised. It's not what I expected at all. But let me read a couple excerpts and so you see what her writing style is. I really liked her writing style as well. So let me see what I have here. All right. I'm sure I'd be a great atheist if I didn't find atheism about as comforting as a blanket of upturned tacks. You see, the trouble is I'm a skeptic, but I am also tired of God being dead. The appeal of witchcraft for me isn't about getting naked and dancing in the moonlight. In fact, I fear I am becoming an increasingly rare breed of woman who actually likes her underwire bra. It's about the most sacred, serious, and unfunny obsession we all harbor, a desire to feel safe, to feel secure about your identity and purpose, to have power. And that's probably why I'm doing this now. We are in a climate crisis, racism is pervasive, inequality is skyrocketing, the middle class is shrinking, and a virus is threatening to kill our most vulnerable, and most of us still can't even agree on if any of this is a problem. Witchcraft represents comfort and agency in a world that otherwise buzzes with 1,000 things I have no control of, but promise to destroy my life. It tempts me to tame my inner turmoil and heal my uncomfortable relationship with spirituality by putting me in charge of it. It's a DIY ingress to divine comfort in a world of superstorms and daily economic uncertainty. And maybe it's just because I spent a year inside reading story after story about some newfangled way that we're all gonna die, but I have a sudden and compelling urge to grab the helm of my spirituality and steer it straight into the arms of some divine being who will tell me everything is going to be okay. No, that maybe I can be one of the people making it okay. Witchcraft is a kaleidoscopic spirituality, often pulling from traditions that claim to have survived in secret over millennia. Diving into witchcraft provides the same sensation as discovering a forgotten path home, forging a connection with something bigger than myself, picking up a phone line to talk to my shapeless, long-forgotten ancestors. It feels like a way to find my unique identity in a world of increasing homogeneity. Maybe even a way to discover pride in my European heritage without becoming a Nazi. So then this part, like she's telling her mom, that was a hard part in all of this, because witchcraft over the years has been given a very negative connotation. Everyone's like, thinks of it as like Satan worship or devil worshiping or whatever. So this is when she's trying to tell her mom that she's going to be doing witchcraft for a year. So, however, the Bible is still the main book of sacred scriptures in America, and I'd be kidding if I said I wasn't terrified of the judgment of my evangelical uncles and Southern Baptist friends for undertaking this journey. It's this precise fear that I will be working through during the year. I sense myself starting to circle the drain on it here in the kitchen, but decide to keep it to myself. I'm not very confident just yet, and Mom does not look like she's ready to cheerlead. I think the point is, I clear my throat, it's about finding divinity within yourself and the world around you. I say, feigning a posture of authority. It doesn't rely on belief in something like a virgin birth or a Holy Ghost. It's just about connecting to the energy of the world. For the record, I have no idea what energy of the world means. It just sounds like something witches say. I'm just turning hiking into church, I conclude, finally finding something we can connect on. Turning my love of nature into spirituality. Easy. So that's that. And one part that I thought was really funny, because she was always like running to the spiritual store, and she was just always having to buy like candles and ribbons and crystals and herbs and just like all of this stuff. And so she was saying, she's like, now I know why they call it witchcraft, because like you're always doing arts and crafts. She just always felt like she was just doing some kind of craft project, and it's so funny. Okay, highly recommend a book like that. Not just like if you're curious about witchcraft. I mean, you can be like curious just to know a little bit more. Maybe you have some friends that are witches, or they have like different beliefs. So I think that's like a cool book to like kind of learn a little bit about it. Or if you're thinking of getting into the craft, then just seeing like someone's experience and learning along with her a couple different things. So I think that was just so fun. Okay. My other book, completely unrelated, but funny enough, is Krampus, the Yule Lord by Brom. No, I was not like in some witchy, devilly thing. I don't know. All right. But this book, I do have a bunch of tabs in here. This book, okay, first I read Slewfoot by Brom. Loved it so much. So I was so excited to read Krampus. Oh my God. As good as Slewfoot, if not better. Krampus stole my heart. Wow, Brom, you're a beast. Okay, so in this book, Krampus is the Yule Lord. If you don't know about Yule, the easiest way I can explain it is, oh boy, so Yuletide, all right, Yuletide carols, okay, we've heard them in Christmas carols, but there used to be, well, there is, I guess, a season of Yule. It's Yuletide, and it was celebrated by what people would call pagans or like non-Christians. And at some point, Christianity turned Yule into Christmas. That's the best way I can say it. I'm not trying to offend anybody, but that's what happened. So it used to be Yuletide, and then it turned into Christmas. And some Yule traditions and rituals were taken into Christianity, like the Christmas tree. Not Christianity, but into Christmas. Okay, so the Christmas tree was actually a ritual that they would do, or a tradition that they would do. In the winter, they would bring evergreens and things like that into their homes, and there was just like all of this stuff. Anyways, so we have Yule, the Yule Lord, which is Krampus, and he is upset because Santa stole his sack. All right, so Santa's sack that he has was actually Krampus's sack, and that sack is Loki's sack. And Loki, this is into like the gods of Norse mythology. Okay, so you have like Thor and Odin and Loki. So Krampus has been chained up in a cave with magical chains. The sack was taken from him by Santa, and he's been withering and getting weak for like 500 years. And he has had his bell snickles, they are kind of like his little minions, trying to get this sack from Santa Claus, trying to find Santa and get this sack back and get it to Krampus so that he can escape. So Krampus has the biggest beef ever with Santa Claus. So stuff gets wild. Oh my God. Not only was this book absolutely funny, there were just some hilarious parts, but there were a lot of serious parts. There were some gory parts. And I know, like in the beginning, it was just like you didn't know who to root for. You're like, who's the bad guy? Because you're thinking, Krampus is nuts. Like, he looks real demonic and evil, and what's this about him stealing kids and drowning them or whipping them for being bad or whatever. So you're thinking like Krampus is bad. Like, we're trained to think Santa is good, right? He is the giver of gifts and this and that. So you're kind of like confused. Like, you're not sure really who you're rooting for, who the bad guy really is. And you can kind of see a little bit both sides of the story. But this book was amazing. But you get to really see the heart of Krampus. You get to see the heart of Yule and Yuletide and what it really meant and what it really represented and why it was so important. But the writing, it was amazing. This was such a fun adventure. It was crazy. I mean, you're talking about the flying goats pulling the sleigh, an attack on the reindeer, your Santa's wives. Okay, so speaking of, okay, so in the middle, there are some black and white illustrations throughout this book, but there is also in the middle color illustrations. Now let's look at Santa, okay? Hello. Look at that guy. Like, he's a beast. He is tough to take down. And this here, that's one of Santa's wives. Okay? One of his wives. I never pictured Mrs. Claus looking like that. Okay? And wow, Makwa. I loved him. This is one of Santa's bell snickles. He was like a native, I think a Native American, like hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And he came from a tradition that still honored, you know, the earth and the rituals of the earth and things like that. So he was so faithful to Krampus. Loved him. He was so cool. So let's see. Let me pick some things. So this is Krampus talking to a guy named Jesse. Your dreams are your spirit, your soul, and without them you are dead. He made a fist. You must guard your dreams, always, lest someone steal them from you. I know what it is to have your dreams stolen. I know what it is to be dead. His voice was almost a growl. Guard your dreams. Always guard your dreams. Christmas, Krampus spat. No, Christmas is an abomination, a perversion. Yule is the true spirit of Mother Earth. Yule is the rebirth of the seasons. Without Yuletide, Mother Earth cannot heal herself, will wither and die. Let me see. A song far away, achy breaky heart. Jesse decided he must have ended up in hell because there was no way they'd play that god-awful song in heaven. Let me see. Oh my goodness. Ooh, this is when Krampus saw like just this decimation of land. Krampus set the sleigh down upon a plateau overlooking the man-made crater. The faintest traces of dawn spread along the horizon, exposing the bald, angry scar upon the land. Why, it goes on as far as one can see. The Yule Lord's brows tightened as though he was trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Men did this? Jesse nodded. Yeah, they did. They did this on purpose? Jesse nodded. Krampus fell silent. Why would they destroy the forest, the mountains, the very land? For the coal. They blast the tops off the mountains to get to the coal. Krampus shook his head, his face bewildered. It is like cutting off one's own arm to feed oneself. Soon there will be no place left for the spirits to dwell. The earth will become a soulless land, a place of ghosts, just like Asgard. He touched his cheeks, his fingers sliding downward, contorting his face into a mask of despair. Does mankind truly hate itself? His voice dropped, barely a whisper. How can one surmount such irreverence? Krampus didn't smile or laugh. His gaze returned to the flame. I am fearful most men of this age are like you. They have forgotten what it is to huddle in a hut with the beasts and demons howling outside their door. They no longer have want of a great and terrible spirit to protect them. They have lost their fear of the wild, and with it, their need to believe. I cannot blame them, for now they have the power to chase away the shadows with the mere flick of a switch. So I must ask myself, what role can I play in a world where men worship the moving picture box, where they make and consume potions that eat away their own brains, where they ravage and pillage entire mountains, kill the very earth itself? Mankind has lost its connection to the land, to the earth, to the beasts and spirits. They gather their food, not from the forest and fields, but from plastic bins and ice boxes. Their lives are no longer tied to the cycles of the seasons and the harvest. No longer do they need the Yule Lord to chase away the winter darkness and usher in the light of spring. Man has only himself to fear now. He has become his own worst devil. So, Krampus! Oh, there were just so many, just so many wonderful, wonderful like scenes of like celebration. There was fear. It was hysterical when Krampus was trying to like bring back Yuletide. So he was like sneaking into people's houses and speaking to the children. And these kids were scared out of their minds, because he's like over 7 feet tall, and you know, he's horned and everything. And so yeah, I mean, they were just terrified as all mess, and he's just, you know, trying to teach them about Yule. And I just couldn't. And then his followers are like, oh my gosh, you're like, we're gonna die, you're gonna get us all killed. And so that's it. That's all I had for you. Let me give you a little update on what I'm currently reading. I actually not currently reading, but I actually finished Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Yes, I did that. Okay, look at this. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about it because I'm still processing it. I'll let you know this much. I liked it. I did like it. Levin, he was my favorite guy. Levin is the dude. I really liked him. But that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to save that for another video because I really want to process, go through my tabs, kind of absorb it, because I'm still thinking about it. I only finished this a couple days ago, so it's still doing its thing. Because sometimes, you know, you're like, and like the more you think about it, you're like, that was kind of cool. So I need some time. Currently reading, with it being February, I am reading a romance. This is a historical romance. Historical romances used to be my favorite genre, honestly. And this was like maybe like teens, early 20s. Okay, so I am currently reading Lavyrle Spencer's book, Years. Okay, this big old book actually has 3 novels in it. I am only reading Years, and honestly, Years is a reread for me. But it's been like over 20 years since I read Years, and I remember just loving it so much. So we are following this very young woman, Linnea. She's like 18. She just finished teaching school, okay? And I think we're probably like in the early 1900s. She just finished teaching school. She gets on a train and goes to, I think it's called Alamo, North Dakota. So it's a very rural farmland area, and she's going to teach at a one-room schoolhouse. So this guy, Theodore, picks her up at the train station. He's mad because he thought they hired a man teacher, and it's this what he says is a little girl. He thinks she looks like a little girl dressed in her mama's clothes, and it's he and his family that have always housed the school teachers with them. So he's like, no woman staying in my house, get out of here, like I'm gonna have to put you somewhere else. And so he's like really mean and really rude, but he ends up having to take her back to his house because no one else can bring her in. And in his home is his mother and his 16-year-old son. And then his brother John lives in the neighboring farm. He's a bachelor. And, you know, so they kind of work on their farms together for the most part. And John eats all of his meals at the house, you know, with his mom and his brother and nephew. So there's that. And so just Theodore is so freaking mean to Linnea. And she's kind of like nervous and scared. She has the wrong kinds of clothes and shoes for that area. She just really wasn't prepared, but she's really excited about being the school teacher for this one-room schoolhouse and starting her teaching career. And this book, it's just, this book just warmed my heart so much when I read it 20 some years ago. And I'm glad I wait that long before doing rereads on some of my books, because it is kind of like reading it again for the first time, because I forgot what the living situation was. I forgot that Theodore had a son. I didn't remember what happened to Theodore's wife, or what all that history was. But I am just enjoying this. I am all in my feels, feeling all lovey-dovey and just cozy and anxious, and I guess it's kind of like a enemies to lovers kind of trope, done in the best way. It is done in the best way. A lot of enemies to lovers tropes are so hard to believe, because you seems like there's no real good reason for them to be enemies, right? Like, it's always something so little or something so small or something so stupid, you know, or sometimes nothing at all. They just hate each other for seemingly no reason. But there is great reason in this book, and it runs deep. And so that's that. I'm gonna leave that there. I don't want to do any spoilers, but this book just draws out that, what do you call it, that longing, that yearning, that's you know what I mean, that slow burn, you know, just a slow burn. Love it. I love it. And it's been so long since I've just read a historical romance, and to reread this one is just so special. I love it. Okay. Well, that is all I had for you guys this evening. Thank you so much for being with me. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I've presented here and what you thought about them, and let me know what you're reading now. Okay. Well, I will let you go for now. Happy reading. Bye.